Chapter 1, Halftime Comments. I wasn't eavesdropping, not intentionally. Tyler had left his office door cracked during game night, and his voice carried, louder than usual, animated in that way he only got when he was with his boys and a drink in hand. I was in the hallway folding laundry, the hum of the dryer masking most of it, until one sentence cut through. She's harmless, sweet but totally clueless. There was a burst of laughter on the call. Loud, overlapping voices. Someone mimicked my voice, exaggerated and nasal. Tyler didn't stop them. He laughed along, like he agreed. Like I wasn't just down the hall. I froze with one of his shirts still in my hands. Clueless, he said again, this time with a chuckle. She still thinks that graphic design guy is just being friendly. He's been flirting with her for months, and she doesn't even notice. Another voice chimed in. You've got her right where you want her, man. I heard a bottle clink. And I heard Tyler say, yeah, she's too polite to question anything. I could tell her I'm working late, and she'd believe I was building a spaceship. Laughter again. Then the door finally closed all the way. Maybe he realized how loud he was. Maybe he just didn't care until the joke was over. I stood there in the hallway a little longer than I needed to. Something about hearing your husband laugh at your expense carves a strange space inside your chest. Not quite anger. Not quite heartbreak. More like cold clarity. And maybe he was right. Maybe I had been clueless. But not anymore. By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, I had started a list on my phone. Names, dates, passwords to change. A schedule I could stick to. I titled the note, Exit Strategy. Chapter 2, The Closet Door. The receipt wasn't what tipped me off. It was the way he smiled when he lied. Tyler had always been a smooth talker, part of what made him good at sales. He knew how to make you feel like the center of the universe, while he quietly rearranged the stars behind your back. That night, he came home later than usual, still riding the high of whatever ego stroke his friends had given him. I didn't ask where he'd been. I just watched. He kissed my cheek, dropped his keys in the bowl, and muttered something about a client dinner running long. I nodded, said nothing. The next morning, I found the receipt. I wasn't even looking for it. It was tucked into the inside pocket of his peacoat, the one I'd meant to take to the cleaners for weeks. My hand slipped into the lining, and there it was, crumpled, still faintly scented with cologne and charcoal. Chez Maron. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, 1 dessert, shared. Timestamp, Friday, 8:42 p.m. Note, you looked incredible tonight. I stared at it, read it twice, 3 times. That was the same night he told me he had to meet with a vendor about next quarter's pricing strategy. He came home smelling like wood smoke and vanilla, and I, like the fool I didn't realize I'd been, had poured him tea and asked if the meeting went well. I didn't confront him, not yet. Instead, I slid the receipt into a manila folder and tucked it into the bottom drawer of my office desk. The drawer I never used, the one I kept locked out of habit, not necessity, until now. Later that week, I started sorting clothes, not for laundry, but for escape. The things I wore often went into one pile. The things I didn't care about, they stayed. Let them keep company with the lies. And I started smiling differently around him, tilting my head when he talked, saying, like I hadn't already started mentally mapping my exit. He still called me sweet, still patted my hand when I asked about his day, like I was a pet and not a person. Like he had no idea the woman in front of him had already stopped packing his lunch and started packing her life. The closet door stayed open that week, but only on my side. Chapter 3, Disbelief and Dishes. There's something strange about pretending things are normal when you know they're not. You start noticing everything. The way his voice shifts when he's about to lie. How he takes off his shoes like he's rehearsed it. Like a man performing domesticity, not living it. How he kisses you on the forehead, not the mouth, because that's easier to fake when you're thinking about someone else. That night, I stood at the sink, washing dishes while Tyler scrolled through his phone behind me. The plate I was scrubbing wasn't dirty. It had just held 2 bites of roasted chicken and some untouched greens. But I cleaned it like it was a ritual, something holy, something grounding. Behind me, he laughed at something on his screen. I turned slightly. "What's funny?" "Just a meme," he said, not looking up. "You wouldn't get it." I smiled, tightly. "You're probably right." I think that was the first time he actually heard me say something that wasn't placating. The glance he gave me was quick but uncertain. A flicker of discomfort, like maybe the mask had slipped for half a second and he couldn't be sure how much I'd seen. I dried the plate, stacked it carefully. Then I opened the lower cabinet, where we kept the food storage containers, pulled out a medium one, and began portioning the leftovers. It looked like care. It looked like routine. But it wasn't. It was rehearsal. Every movement was deliberate, measured, practiced. Because in the silence of that kitchen, I wasn't thinking about the plate. I was thinking about storage units, movers, the lock code to the garage I hadn't used in weeks. I had begun counting things in reverse. How many towels to take? How many days until the design consult I had fabricated as an excuse to be out of town? How many nights I had left of this theater? "You okay?" he asked after a while. "Of course," I said softly. "Why wouldn't I be?" He nodded, like he bought it. But I knew better. Because love doesn't feel like performance. It doesn't feel like biting your tongue in your own kitchen. And the man behind me, he had no idea he'd just been written out of the script. Chapter 4. Quiet Moves. I told him I'd landed a new design client. Technically, that wasn't a lie. I just didn't tell him the client was a longtime friend who'd agreed to let me use her empty rental apartment as a staging location for a concept project. The only concept I had in mind, though, was escape. Tyler didn't ask questions. Of course he didn't. He was too busy believing his own myth about me, that I was soft, simple, sweet, too polite to notice the undercurrents, too passive to ever pull away. So when I said I needed the week to work uninterrupted, client's deadline, really tight budget, they're particular, he just nodded and told me to take whatever time I needed. He even offered to help me load the car. I let him carry the first box. Inside were swatches, empty folders, a few unused paint samples, and an old color wheel I hadn't touched in years. It wasn't just camouflage. It was performance art. The real work happened in layers, covert and quiet. I rented a small storage unit under my business LLC. I updated my passport and rerouted mail to a digital inbox. I moved financial documents onto an encrypted drive. Every night, I packed a few things while Tyler showered, labeling boxes by obscure categories so if he stumbled across one, it'd look like business materials. Client meeting went well, he asked one evening when I got back from the rental. Better than expected. I replied, and I meant it. The place was small, sunlit, and quiet. My friend had even left a welcome basket on the counter. Coffee, tea, a single bottle of champagne. I didn't open it. Not yet. I wasn't celebrating. But I would. By the end of the week, I had a mattress on the floor, a dresser, and my grandmother's framed watercolors on the wall. It didn't feel like home yet, but it felt like possibility. Tyler texted that night to say he was going to bed early. I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by folded clothes, and typed 2 words into my notes app, almost done. Because I wasn't just leaving. I was curating an exit so quiet, so polished, it would echo longer than any of his jokes ever would. Chapter 5. Group Chat Echoes. The problem with arrogant men is they never think they're being watched. Tyler had synced his tablet to our shared cloud account months ago, mostly so he could stream games from the kitchen while pretending to help with dinner. He never thought twice about it. Never considered that his messages, screenshots, or even app logins might leave a trail. He definitely didn't consider I'd be the one following it. It started with a ping, a notification that popped up on the old iPad I used for design mock-ups. A text from a name I didn't recognize. Bro, the clueless queen strikes again. I opened the app. The group chat was called Legacy Bros, fitting in a gross kind of way. Inside you 6 men, Tyler and his frat pack friends from college. They had their own shorthand, their own jokes. Most of it was sports and memes, until it wasn't. I scrolled. Tyler, she thinks I'm at the gym. I'm literally watching her try to fix the router with a butter knife. Another guy. Tell her to Google it. Wait, she probably already asked Siri. Tyler. Clueless, I'm telling you. It's cute, like watching a baby deer try to code. Dozens of messages followed. Screenshots of texts I'd sent him. Photos of dinner I'd made, captioned with sarcastic commentary. And the worst part? It wasn't just him laughing. It was all of them. Some of these men had sat at our table, toasted our anniversary, sent Christmas cards with smiling wives and toddlers. And still, they joked about how Tyler could train me if I got too opinionated. One even called me a domesticated golden retriever. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just tapped the share button. I selected myself, my email, my backup drive. Then I started a new folder titled Documentation. Later that night, I stared at the screen and whispered something I hadn't said out loud in years. I deserve better. Because I did. And now I had proof that even his friends agreed, in their own twisted way. Chapter 6. The Distraction Game. Tyler was always most attentive when he had something to hide. That's how I knew the lies were escalating. Suddenly, he was coming home with pastries from my favorite cafe, asking if I wanted to watch that rom-com he used to mock, rubbing my shoulders while I made tea, which he hadn't done since our honeymoon. It was like watching a magician wave one hand so you don't see what the other's doing. But the trick only works if you're not already watching both. One night, he walked in with Thai food and 2 bottles of wine. No reason, he said. Just felt like spoiling my wife. He set it down like he deserved applause. I smiled, kissed his cheek, and said thank you. But as he unpacked the takeout, I noticed the faint outline of a wrist stamp on his inner arm, smudged, but clear enough. From a club, one I knew he didn't visit alone. While he told me about a long client call and traffic from hell, I watched his eyes, how they darted, how they refused to meet mine for more than a few seconds. He thought I was drinking in his sweetness. But I was studying his patterns. Distraction had always been Tyler's default. When bills piled up, he bought gadgets. When I brought up therapy, he booked a surprise trip. When I asked about the future, he kissed me. Always something shiny in place of something honest. This time, I let him play it out. We ate, we laughed, I even let him think he'd won the evening. Then I slipped out around midnight, claiming I had to drop off files for my client. In truth, I was finalizing my moving logistics. The storage unit was nearly full. The rental had a new set of dishes. I'd updated my emergency contact forms at the bank and drafted the change of address notice. By the time I got back, Tyler was asleep on the couch, an empty wine glass in his hand and his phone on his chest. The magician had tired himself out. And I was already preparing for the final reveal. Chapter 7. 2 tickets, 1 bag. The irony was almost poetic. Tyler had planned a weekend away for us. Some last-minute romantic gesture, he said. A beach rental, complete with dinner reservations and a massage package he'd conveniently booked under my name. He presented it with pride, printed tickets and everything, like a child showing off a finger painting. I stared at the itinerary, pretending to be touched. But all I could think about was how many details he'd overlooked. The rental was in her city. The spa he booked, she worked there. I remembered from the group chat texts he thought I hadn't seen. Ones where he joked about her magic hands and how I'd probably thank him for it. He didn't know I'd already memorized her name, or that I'd screenshot every message, every picture. He didn't know that in the middle of pretending to be devoted, he'd given me the perfect excuse to leave. Because this trip, it wasn't for us. It was to make sure I stayed clueless while he stayed in control. I packed a single bag that night, one he wouldn't notice, just enough to play the part. But instead of beachwear and sandals, I packed copies of my bank statements, the spare keys to my rental, my birth certificate, and my USB backup. Everything else was already gone, moved quietly, filed carefully. Tyler watched me from the doorway as I zipped the bag. "You really need to relax this weekend," he said, walking over to kiss my neck. "No overthinking, just you and me." I smiled. "That sounds perfect." And then I handed him his ticket, told him I'd meet him there. I just had to wrap up a few things at the office. He nodded, oblivious. I waited until his car was out of the driveway, then walked back inside, opened my laptop, sent the final security change notices, disconnected my phone from the shared family plan, called the storage unit and confirmed pickup. Then I walked into our bedroom, took one last look around, and left. Because this wasn't just an exit. It was the closing scene, and I wasn't going to miss the best part, watching him realize the second ticket didn't matter anymore. Chapter 8. While he slept. Tyler always snored when he drank too much. Not loud, just enough to be rhythmic, soft and steady, like a metronome for a life he thought was perfectly timed. In the beginning, I used to fall asleep to it, found it comforting even. The sound of someone relaxed, someone who trusted the walls around him. Now, listening to it through the hidden camera feed on my iPad, it felt like something else entirely. Ignorance. Arrogance. This soundtrack to a man who still believed he was untouchable. He'd come home early from the trip, alone. No romantic weekend, no spa session, no dinner overlooking the water. I never showed up, never called to explain. I sent one text. Plans changed. Don't wait up. That was all. He didn't reply. He dropped his bag in the foyer, stared at his phone for a while, checked the fridge, ate a slice of leftover pizza, then flopped on the couch like a man who decided to let the mystery solve itself. He probably thought I was caught up in client stuff, that I'd flaked on the trip without meaning to, that I'd call the next morning apologizing for being distracted. He had no idea I was already gone. While he snored, sprawled out under the flickering light of the TV, I pulled up my laptop. I'd already logged into our shared cloud account earlier, but now it was time to start cutting ties. First, I revoked my access to all joint folders, changed the passwords to every account that still had my name attached, deleted backups, removed synced devices, rerouted bills. The locksmith was scheduled for the morning, a quiet visit Tyler wouldn't know was coming until his key stopped working. The landlord had been fully briefed. I wasn't even on the lease anymore. Then I opened the folder labeled Legacy Bros, my masterpiece. Screenshots of Tyler's group chat, the one where he and his friends mocked me, other women, clients, even coworkers. A grotesque scrapbook of casual misogyny and self-congratulation. I organized everything. Images, dates, voice clips. I embedded metadata, watermarked the file, just in case he claimed it was fabricated. I sent it to his boss, his direct supervisor, his father, who managed the legacy fund Tyler liked to brag about at parties. Subject line, thought you should see this. And then one last message, addressed only to Tyler. While you were out laughing at me, I was busy building the exit you never saw coming. I didn't send it right away. I just watched him sleep, one hand on his stomach, the other clutching the TV remote like it was the last thing keeping him in charge of something. He still had no idea the joke was over. And this time, the punchline was mine. Chapter 9. Inbox 0. By 7:14 a.m., the thread had already exploded. I watched it unfold from the cafe down the street, espresso in hand, a quiet corner table by the window. The iPad screen glowed with unread notifications as Tyler's carefully constructed world began to fracture. The first message came from his father. Call me, immediately. Then another from his boss. We need to discuss the material I just received. 9 a.m. sharp. By 8, 3 names from his firm had viewed the link I'd sent, the receipts, the screenshots, the recordings. I'd included only what mattered, just enough to strip away plausible deniability. Tyler wasn't just mocking his wife behind her back. He was a liability to every woman he worked with. He still hadn't texted me. Not a single question. No, where are you? No, what's going on? That told me everything. Tyler wasn't worried about me. He was trying to get ahead of it, calculating, spinning, running PR before the house even caught fire. The doorbell camera picked up the locksmith around 8:22. I watched from my phone as the man replaced the locks, bagged the old cylinders, and handed the new keys to the neighbor, per my instructions. She'd always liked me more anyway. The final step was the email from my lawyer. It went out at 8:45 on the dot. Subject line, separation of property and digital assets. The message was calm, precise, legally sound. Attached were all the documents Tyler hadn't seen coming, because he never once thought I was capable of quiet retaliation. He thought I was soft. He mistook restraint for passivity, tact for weakness. But today, the difference became clear. At 9:03 a.m., Tyler finally called. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched as his call went to voicemail and my inbox lit up with a new email. From HR, from legal, from the firm's ethics committee. I smiled, deleted the message from Tyler. Then close the app. Inbox 0. Damage complete. Chapter 10. Legacy Revised. Tyler always said he was building a legacy. He meant the kind that came with embossed business cards and overpriced scotch. The kind passed down over golf games and quiet family money. His last name was his brand. His friends called him the closer. His dad introduced him like an heir. But legacies have one fatal flaw. They're only as strong as the story behind them. And Tyler's story was about to change. By noon, the family group chat had gone quiet. His cousins had seen the screenshots. One had even replied directly to me, not him. "I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve any of that." At 1:27 p.m., Tyler's name disappeared from his company's leadership team webpage. The cached version still showed him smiling in a blazer 2 sizes too tight, arms folded like he had something to protect. Now, just a blank space. I didn't post anything online. No cryptic quotes. No dramatic unfollow spree. I didn't need to. The people who mattered already knew. The ones who didn't would find out soon enough. I spent the rest of the day doing normal things. Laundry, grocery run. Called my mom, fed the neighbor's cat. It felt surreal, how ordinary it all was, given what I'd just detonated. But then again, that's what power really looks like. Quiet, clean, deliberate. Tyler sent another text around 3:42 p.m. "May, we need to talk. This is out of control." No, it was finally in control, just not his. That evening, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, glass of wine in one hand, a manila envelope on the table beside me, filled with the documents that would dissolve every shared asset, every legal tie, every digital shadow we'd built together. I'd already signed. All that was left was for him to return the favor. He thought he buried me under his reputation, but I was never underneath it. I was just waiting above with a shovel. And now, the legacy he built was still his. Only now, it came with a footnote, written in my name. Chapter 11, The Receipt Drawer. There was a drawer in our old condo Tyler never touched, bottom right, under the desk in the guest room. I called it the receipt drawer, but it was more than that. It held grocery stubs, old phone bills, outdated warranties, and yes, receipts. But it also held the things I needed him to overlook, like the signed affidavit from the locksmith I hired 3 weeks before I left, or the cash receipt from the burner phone I picked up in a gas station one town over. Even the post office tracking slip for the sealed envelope I'd mailed to his firm's board, the one with the screenshots and voice clips that didn't need a caption. All of it went into that drawer, because I knew Tyler would never look. "Babe, you're the organized one," he used to say, waving off anything paper-based like it was beneath him. "I do deals, you do details." He thought that made him the architect, but it made me the one with the blueprints. The week after I left, he finally tried to show up. Not with anger, at least not at first. Just confusion. The buzzer rang at 6:48 p.m. on a Thursday. I was curled up on the couch in leggings and a hoodie, watching a rerun of a home renovation show with a bowl of cereal in my lap. The screen lit up with his name. Tyler, front entry. I didn't answer. I watched instead. He pressed the button again. Then a third time, looking up at the camera like it might blink back. When nothing happened, he sighed and culled something from his coat pocket, a folded envelope. He bent down, slid it through the mail slot, and stood there for a moment, shoulders hunched, jaw tight. Then he left. I let the silence settle before I stood to retrieve it. 4 pages. Handwritten. The opening line made me scoff. I honestly didn't realize things were this bad. Further down, I thought maybe you just needed space. That you were overreacting to something. And finally, if you'd told me what was bothering you instead of going nuclear, maybe we could have fixed it. That line stopped me, because I had told him, not with screaming or ultimatums, but with carefully chosen words, withheld affection, and months of distance he never once tried to cross. I'd told him by stepping back, by disappearing in plain sight. He just didn't notice, or didn't care. There was one more thing in the envelope, a photo. Us, from 2 years ago, at a company gala. His arm around my shoulder, my smile politely frozen. On the back he'd written, "Don't erase this, please." I stood there a while, envelope in hand, the photo curled slightly from age and humidity. Then I walked it to my new desk, opened the bottom drawer, and slid it in, right beside the burner phone receipt and the legal separation paperwork. because some people only start to see you when you're already gone. Chapter 12. What they said next. The internet always catches up. That's what no one tells men like Tyler, the ones who think secrets stay in group chats, or that smug little jabs at their partners will never leave the bar, or the locker room, or the back end of a Slack channel labeled banter. But the internet doesn't forget. And women, especially the ones who've been underestimated, don't stay quiet forever. It started with a single post. Not from me. I never said a word publicly. But someone leaked the screenshots. Maybe one of the board members. Maybe one of his coworkers. Maybe one of the girlfriends from that Legacy Bros thread who recognized her name in a string of cruel jokes. Whoever it was, it didn't take long. By the end of the day, the screenshots were all over LinkedIn, quietly shared in HR circles under the hashtag Leadership Matters. By the weekend, they'd made it to Reddit, and once the TikTok sleuths got a hold of them, game over. One creator did a dramatic reading of Tyler's texts using a sock puppet and a voice filter. It got 2.6 million views in 24 hours. "She's too emotional to be a real partner," the puppet squeaked, waving its little yarn hands. "Then maybe don't make her carry your legacy for you, Tyler," the creator snapped. The comment section turned into a digital courtroom. "This man gives off finance bro who cries when you order dessert energy. Imagine mocking your wife in a group chat while she's literally out-earning you in silence. I'd leave too, and take the espresso machine." I didn't comment, didn't like, didn't repost. I just watched. Because for once, the world was saying what I'd always wanted to scream, and they were doing it louder, faster, and with better punchlines. His father's name was quietly removed from their alma mater's donor page. His firm issued a vague statement about upholding ethical standards and taking concerns seriously. And Tyler? He started a new account under a different name. No profile picture, no posts, just a single sentence in the bio. "We all make mistakes." Sure, but not all of us turn them into punchlines that echo louder than our apologies. Epilogue. Before the final whistle. He waited outside the cafe for almost 20 minutes before I acknowledged him. I saw him through the window, pacing, checking his watch like it mattered now. I didn't owe him the meeting, but I showed up because closure, when earned properly, is a privilege. And I wanted to be the one to end it on my terms. He stood when I walked in. No smile, no smugness left. Just a man trying to look smaller than he'd ever let himself be. "Thanks for coming," he said. I sat down, didn't touch the coffee he'd already ordered for me. He started talking. The usual script. "I didn't realize how far apart we'd gotten. I thought you were happy. Maybe I should have checked in more." I let him talk, let him flounder through 5 full minutes of emotional CPR. Then I looked him in the eye. "There's no point staying with a man who not only has no respect for you," I said, voice calm, "but openly expresses disdain for everything about you." His face twitched, a flicker of offense rising beneath the surface. "You didn't just cheat," I continued. "You disrespected me in ways that can't be undone, can't be forgiven." He opened his mouth to respond. I raised a hand. "What good would talking about it do? You knew exactly what you were doing. You just would have been more circumspect next time. Cleaner, smarter, not better." His jaw clenched. "We both know you had no intention of changing. That would have required you to actually care about someone other than yourself. So don't waste my time with platitudes or blame shifting." He was quiet now. His coffee sat untouched too. A full table between us, but it felt like a canyon. "You got what you asked for, Tyler," I said. "And now you get to live with it." I stood. He didn't follow. Didn't call out. Just sat there, watching me walk away. Outside, the traffic hummed, like it always had. Somewhere down the block, a whistle blew. Probably from the pickup soccer game that always played in the park this time of day. And me? I didn't need a whistle. I'd already ended the game.
Thanks so much for watching. If you love a good revenge story, or if you've ever dreamed of getting the last word without saying much at all, you're in the right place. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new savage ending. Because around here, karma always hits different.